Hi, I'm Mary Pohl, your host for the Sales Mastery Summit. Does your personal brand matter to the customers that you really want? Today's expert knows how to craft a personal brand that makes customers want to buy from you. With me today is Jeb Blount, author of People Buy You, the real secret to what matters most in business. Welcome, Jeb.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I would imagine that you are a welcome sight for sales reps that are really feeling pressure of competition. So to kick off, can you share with us how you help sales reps become the actual differentiator that they're offering?
Well, that's a great question. And let me start off with the premise of the people buy you paradigm. The premise is basically this. If you really look at how people buy and why people buy, they don't buy products or services. They don't buy your business card, your marketing plan. They don't buy all the collateral that you bring, or most of the things that salespeople tend to complain about. If you're looking for a job, people aren't buying your resume or any of your education or any of those things. What they're buying is you. And they're buying this belief that they can trust you, that you're going to deliver on what you say you're going to do, and that you're going to be there for them when they need your help to solve their problems. And honestly, that's what people buy at the end of the day. They're spending money to solve problems. So if you can understand that particular concept, that people don't buy products or services, they buy you. As a sales professional, it makes you very powerful, because all of a sudden, instead of worrying about all this external stuff like your competitors and your internal people in your company, you can really begin to think about how you can change the way you go to market, and that will make you more money, and it'll make you happier in the end, because you're going to have a lot of friends who are people you call customers.
Super. And that fits so well with the mindset or belief that really, when it comes down to it, all products are commodities. So what are you differentiating on that in that case? I think what you help with fits that perfectly.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's kind of a cool way of saying that. People really get kind of crazy, especially when I'm out giving speeches at large organizations, if I call their product or service as a commodity. But in this type of an interview environment, I think we can do that. But you're exactly right. This is the reality of the global marketplace. Everybody is essentially the same. Every company is essentially the same, unless you're an Apple or some of these big well-known companies that have a single product line, or have spent years establishing a brand. The vast majority of companies, I mean, you can always point out these outliers, but the vast majority of companies from a customer standpoint are all the same. And if you've been in sales for any period of time, you've heard a customer say that to you. You sat down at their desk and they've said to you, you guys are all the same. Why should I buy from you? And so if you walk into your sales career and say, my product or service is not the differentiator, I am the differentiator, all of a sudden you go from being a commodity, product or service, feature or benefit, to being a problem solver. And a problem solver is unique, because only you can bring those solutions that you as an individual come up with for your client. And by the way, that's there's a big move on this concept called challenger selling or challenger sales, which the top salespeople have been doing since the beginning of time, which is they realize that in any buying situation, there's a status quo, and until they challenge that status quo and move people out of that status quo by showing them where their problems are, or where problems they don't know they have are, and fixing those problems, they're really never going to move the bar on their career, and they're not going to move the bar on delivering exceptional levels of sales in the marketplace.
I would imagine that to your comment that all companies are the same kind of issues where a company can drop the ball come up. So would you actually coach a sales rep to maybe fess up and give scenarios where their company had dropped the ball on delivery or quality, and how that sales rep really does champion the customer? Or do you not go there?
Well, I think that's situational. I mean, the thing about people buy you is part of that process is learning how to be an authentic human being, and being transparent. And we live in let's flip back a little bit. If you were talking to people in the late 80s, early 90s, you would have heard this term, the age of information, or the information age. And people still banner that term around. What I would tell you is that you're out of the information age and you're in the age of transparency. Anything your customer wants to know about you, what you've done, what your company's done, whether they dropped the ball or what have you, it's going to be there on the internet. They're going to find it. They know everything. So for you to try to hold on to information or not give it to them, that's not going to help you at all. But but being authentic, being able to sit down with a customer and say, these are real problems that our customers have, these are real problems that you have, and here's how we address those, and here's how we solve them. That goes a long, long way. And one of the things that I try to tell especially account managers is never let your customer catch you doing something wrong. Tell them you're doing it wrong, and they'll respect you for that. So I think that situationally, especially during the conversation or during the process of presenting solutions to them, or when talking about your company as a whole or your competitors, if you obviously don't want to open, the curtain all the way and let them see the wizard standing behind the machine. But I think there's a place where you become real to them. And I've sold millions of dollars of business being myself and being who I am, and having my company be who it is and not trying to be something else.
Makes perfect sense. So, do you have steps to creating a personal brand?
Yes, I mean, so let's take personal branding and let's take people by you and sort of separate those a little bit. So we have
Okay.
several levers in people by you. Lever one is be likable. So part of building your personal brand is just being a person that people like. That's smiling. I'm actually reading a book right now. I get accused of I've written, there's 9 pages in people by you about how to smile, and so I get teased about that a lot. So I'm reading another book. It's called Subliminal, and this book is all about how the most important, the most powerful communicator in all of human existence is the smile. That's how we tell people we're approachable. It's how we tell people we're friendly. It's how we connect with people. But that smile is part of your personal brand. I mean, that's part of what you bring to the table. We also talk about connecting. So connecting is simply building, bringing down emotional walls and listening to people so that they begin to tell you their story. And as they tell you their story, they tell you their problems. If you're a problem solver, which is the number 3 lever, you're able to solve people's problems, they give you money. And then you build trust, and trust is part of who you are in your personal brand. And people are always looking at ways that they can trust you or not trust you. Most buyers are looking at the things that you're going to do wrong, not the things that you're going to do right. So you've got a little bit of makeup to do there, and then creating positive emotional experiences for people. In other words, anchoring your relations to them emotionally so that they remember you. And that's all part of this whole concept of personal branding. A lot of what you hear in the marketplace around personal branding now is around social media and how you appear to people when they do a search for you or on you. And we write a whole chapter people by you about this. So let's take these two things separately. One is the person that people perceive you to be, and people are going to look at you and they're going to make a snapshot of you, buyers in particular, based on what they perceive you to be. So that is how you speak, how you look, how you react. Do you come dressed well? Do you treat the receptionist well? How is your demeanor? Are you polite? Are you knowledgeable about your product and service? Now, we talk about you being more important than your product and service, but having the ability to articulate what your product and service does for your client is part of your personal brand. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is what people find when they come looking for you. So we talk about this concept of the age of transparency. Well, there's some statistics out there that say that more than 50% of buyers Google the salesperson before they meet the salesperson. So what are they finding when they go online? I mean, are they finding a Facebook page full of all kinds of stuff from your college days? Or are they finding a LinkedIn profile that is well put together and talks about who you are? Are they finding something that maybe you wrote in a trade magazine or a trade pub? Or are they finding interesting things that you have said? Are they finding testimonials from your other customers? And they're going to go in and they're going to find you, and they're going to do that in just a few minutes. So, and you have a lot of control over that. And one thing that's kind of interesting lately that I've noticed in looking at personal branding is because I'm the CEO of salesgravy.com. We're an online sales employment website. People call me all the time who are out of work, and I'll go and look at their LinkedIn profile, and there's no picture on it. And the question I asked them is, would you go to a networking event with a bag over your head? So we've got those two pieces that as a salesperson you've got to put together, and you've got to manage it very well, and you have to have the discipline to manage it very well. So here's one thing, Mary, that I would challenge everybody listening to this video do right now is go and look at all of your social profiles and go through them with a fine-tooth comb. Get rid of anything on there that is not supporting you as an expert and a problem solver to your customers, and add things on there that are going to help you show up as an expert and a problem solving for your customers. Because as your personal brand, that's what you have to be. In sales, you're a problem solver. Problem solvers are the champions of the business world. And if your customers don't believe that you can solve their problems, they will not give you money under any circumstance.
I love that you've got the two-pronged approach, because we think of personal brand as how we show up, but we're showing up virtually via the internet before we even get to meet most customers. So that's a really important tip, to make sure people are paying attention to their online brand and how it's supporting personally what they want to deliver. I would imagine, even you gave the example of LinkedIn, making sure that you're minding some recommendations perhaps that support the fact that you are a problem solver in everything that a customer would want in a salesperson.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes beyond LinkedIn. I mean, there are dozens of social media groups out there. I'm a proponent of, I'm going to have my personal profile on every one of them. Why? Because when people Google Jeb Blount, they're going to find me, and they're going to go through a number of pages. And and right now, I dominate the Jeb Blount page on Google. I think there's one Jeb Blount who's not me that's on that page, and I'm working diligently to move that person off. And so but it's also about, what are you doing in terms of writing? What are you doing in terms of speaking? What are you doing in terms of standing in front of trade groups who could benefit from you? How are you using that media to build your brand out as an expert, as someone who can solve problems? Now, if you're an entry-level sales rep and you're working for a Fortune 500 company, your opportunities to brand yourself through blogging and writing are going to be limited. Your company's going to not want you out there writing stuff about their products and services that are not being controlled by marketing. If you work for a smaller company, clearly you're going to have opportunities to establish yourself as that expert. And I've been recently, in fact, working with a group of yacht brokers in Annapolis, Maryland, on personal branding. And with those guys, our personal branding is, go take videos of yourself on sailboats and boats doing the things that you love to do, and post those for your customers, because nothing says more about your passion for boating than people actually seeing you boating. And that's going to connect people to you in a unique way. And I would say, for depending on what sales area you're in, what industry you're in, where you are in your career, there's going to be different ways for you to connect with your customers and build that persona, that person that people connect with you, that's going to get them and make them want to connect with you, so that, again, they'll talk to you and they'll tell you what they need, and you can then fix that for them. And again, I say this over and over again to people: when you solve problems, people have this really weird way of giving you money for that.
I love that, because, and there are opportunities for junior sales reps even to be top commenters in groups and that sort of thing.
Yes.
So they really stand out and can showcase their expertise in how they're solving problems. So there is a way for everyone to get out there. And I love the aspirational idea too. Is there a way that you can, be building a personal brand that is aspirational for your customers?
And it's not just, it goes beyond customers. There's a company, you've probably heard of, HubSpot. And they're one of my favorite companies in the United States. They're fantastic. Actually, they're in the world now. And great culture, great service. They are looking for people who are building their brands online. That's who they hire. They go out. One of the kids I mentored, who went to the University of Central Florida, I mentor a kid every year there, and I mentored one of their, he's not a kid anymore, he's a man now, and he's a good sales rep. But they found him online because he was commenting on groups, and he had his own blog, and he had all of his profiles filled out, and they looked at this person. They said, this is someone who gets it. They understand the way, how to build their brand the way we want to build our brand. And they went out and they sought him out and hired him into this wonderful, fast-moving company that is beginning to dominate inbound marketing. And if you read their literature, that's what they're doing. But there are recruiters out there. There are companies out there. Those companies are looking for you. And if you're in sales, look, you're always going to want to advance your career forward. So it's not just with customers. It's with people who have the potential to hire you and advance your career.
Good point. Now, Jeb, you covered some levers that really help us design our personal brand. Is there soul searching, or is there some help on how to make those unique for myself or for the viewers individually? So it's just being trustworthy in general doesn't help you stand out. How do you use those levers to craft something that really express your individuality?
Well, let's go back to the basis of business. So let's just strip everything away. So the subtitle of this book is the real secret to what matters most in business. Okay, so strip everything away, all the BS, all of the things that we put around it, all the books you've read. Here's what business is. All business is one person solving another person's problem. Now, whether that's a salesperson or a customer service person or internally one person in another department solving a person in another department's problem, whatever it is, but that's all business is. And it happens millions of times every day, and that's how we get the machine to work. So if you look at how do I do some soul searching to make my personal brand stand out, the personal brand's got to be, how can I solve your problems? And whether that's telling a story that you've been able to help somebody, whether it's writing a blog or writing a comment in a group, or going out there and actively trying to help other people solve problems. I mean, if you're looking for those opportunities, it's getting a testimonial. That's what's going to make you stand out. I mean, if you really do some soul searching, think about it. The basis of everything we do as human beings is helping someone else fix something. I mean, that's what makes us human to begin with. So your online brand has got to be that person who solves problems. Your offline brand has got to be exactly the same thing. The problem with your offline brand is people don't have a tendency, we know this is a fact because our mamas told us don't go around telling everybody your problems, but we don't necessarily just tell people our problems. So your offline brand has got to be the individual who can engage a customer and get them to talk to you and get them to trust you enough to tell you what's really going on, so they get below the surface and they begin to tell you the deep issues, and then you can then focus on those problems. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely does. So your personal brand isn't necessarily carved in stone. It is who you are, but make sure that you're showing up for the problem that needs to be solved, and then bringing, I guess, in terms of your personal brand, bringing to play what's relevant to that customer, that situation. Did I get that right?
You got that. So you're exactly right. Your personal brand is not something carved in stone. I mean, people are going to make an instant. They're going to make an instant evaluation of who you are when they see you online. When they meet you, they're going to get the gist of who you are. That's why they go online and look. When you walk to their front door or you call them on the telephone, if you're in inside sales, they're going to make an instant judgment about who you are based on how you look or how you sound, or your facial expressions, or a big smile on your face, which definitely makes a difference with people. I mean, those are the things that are going to make a difference. But your personal brand is the perception people have of you, which is what in an emotional connection, just like a brand is in the greater marketplace. That's going to evolve. It's going to evolve both situationally in the short term, and it's going to evolve long term as you change. I mean, gosh, 6 years ago, my personal brand was VP of Sales for a Fortune 500 company. Today, it's CEO of a small company. It's an author. It's a sales expert. It's, I just got a bump. I'm now, on the top 50 list of the most influential sales and marketing thought leaders in the world, which is kind of cool. So I've got to learn to figure out how to weave that into my brand without sounding, completely arrogant. But so you have all of those things that change, and you've got to be aware of that and monitor it. That's why I go back to that question: would you go to a networking event with a bag on your head? I mean, how many of people have gone and set up a profile on LinkedIn but never gone back and filled it out? How many people have changed their career or had a milestone happen in their career or with a customer and never gone in and asked for a testimonial or never made that change? How many people are allowing, like, I won't allow my family to tag me with photos on Facebook because my personal brand is at stake. So I've got just a standing rule. If you want to tag me with a photo, call me first, let me look at it, and then you can do that, because I've got to control what's happening with me online, because it's such an important part of my business. It evolves. It's a living, breathing thing, and it's not going to change. I mean, you can think about the days back in, I'm a child of the 80s, so I go back to the 80s, and I think nobody knew anything about me. It was wonderful to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Well, I got news for you. If you're anonymous today, you're creepy. So you got a problem there too. So you've got to constantly be updating. And like you said, and I think your words are right on the money. It evolves, it changes, it's living and breathing, and you got to manage it every day. It's got to be obsessive the way you manage your personal brand and everything you do.
And I think you've emphasized obsess both in contributing to the brand image that you're aiming for and policing and protecting, so that outsiders aren't corrupting your brand.
Well, you're exactly right. Now, if you're, and that's so funny you said that, and I love what you just said. So I run a big website. We've got 400,000 pages on salesgravy.com, and we work with top experts all over the world who write articles for us. So every day, our content manager gets emails from companies who someone used their trademark the wrong way, or someone said something, and they write us letters and say, you can't put that on there, or we need you to change this, and we work with them. And that happens with YouTube and any big website. There are people out there that are constantly managing their brand because they don't want anybody to corrupt that brand. Even if it's unintentional, they don't want that to happen.
Makes perfect sense. Jeb, is there some place that our viewers can go for help, more help if they want to really dive in deeper on crafting their own personal brand?
There are two places I would suggest that folks go. I mean, one place would be go to salesgravy.com. We have a huge amount of resources there. We've got more than 30,000 pages of articles and content, and there's great articles on personal branding and sales. You can go there, and you can also go to our free sales stuff section. And there's actually a really good email or ebook online right now from Jill Conrad that you can download free on selling more through LinkedIn. In addition, I would suggest that you go to peoplebuyyou.com. That's people B-U-Y, peoplebuyyou.com. You can download a free chapter of People By You, and there's some blogs and some other information there that you'll find helpful as well. And you can always reach out to me personally on any of my social networks, and join me in any groups or what have you, and ask questions.
So, Jeb, I would imagine with the thousands and thousands of sales professionals that you've worked with, you've got a few favorite client examples where you've really helped somebody transform their own personal brand and their skills to help them be more effective. Are there any stories that you care to share?
Yeah, one in particular is kind of interesting. It's maybe not so much a client example, but every year I go to the NCSC. That's the National Collegiate Sales Competition at Kennesaw State, and because I guest lecture at University of Central Florida, I generally coach their team, and the NCSC is really cool. I mean, if it's like high nerd for sales junkies. So it's these students basically are competing head to head doing mock sales calls, and these are major universities. There's like, I don't know, 100 universities that show up, and hundreds of kids. Top employers are trying to recruit these guys. It's the Super Bowl of selling. So a few years ago, when we were first working on the People By You project, what we talked to the kids about was, when you're in the role play, it's not real, it's fake. You're in the role play. If you use these techniques, be likable, connect, solve problems, build trust, and create positive emotional experiences, the buyer, even though the buyer knows that it's fake, will come along with you. And it was interesting. Kyle Williams, who is now a sales manager and a top one of the top guys over in Google sales team, was one of the kids that actually won it. He won the entire thing that year. Out of, I don't know, 300, 400 students, he won it using People By You. And it was interesting. He would go into the call, and he would come out, and there would be a judge and there'd be a buyer, and the buyers would come out afterwards, and they'd have their sheet in their hand, and they were saying, I wasn't supposed to buy from you, but I couldn't help myself. I did it anyway. And it happened
Wow.
over and over and over and over again. And Kyle is a rock star. He's his the way he goes about selling, the way he goes about dealing people is incredible. And I hope he doesn't mind that I mentioned his name. And I know that he's he loves working at Google. It was his dream to work there. But he's been able to take the same concepts and work it through his career as he's progressed and become a sales manager. And he's using these same techniques as a sales manager. I just talked to him the other day ago. But it was an interesting thing to watch, as even in a fake setting, when we really connected with people emotionally, when we took the product or service out and the features and benefits out, and that didn't matter, when the questions matter and the human connection mattered, people could not help themselves. They bought anyway, even when the script said, don't buy. And it was a seminal moment for me. And following that, the book came out, which has been just a runaway bestseller for us. It's been really cool. But these techniques really work. I use them in my own life. I use them in my own sales techniques, and I could tell you story after story after story where we've closed a client, or we've had something revealed in a sales call that helped us close a client just because of a little bit of personal branding and a little bit of human connection and a whole lot of listening and a bunch of problem solving.
Wow. What that sounds like is that our intelligence or our conscious thought can't supersede our human nature, or the human connection that we create will trump intelligence at all times. Even if you're prompted, absolutely do not buy under any circumstances, you just can't suppress human nature.
Another way of saying that is that people tend to buy with emotion and then justify that with logic. And there's been tons of studies done. In fact, we interviewed hundreds of people, asked them the same question. People would constantly say, even when we faced the facts on why they bought it, they would come back and say, no, 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 these are the reasons why I did that. And then psychologists and sociologists and universities have done just dozens and dozens of studies on the same thing that tell us that at the base level, as human beings, we're emotional creatures. And we also want to connect with people. So with salespeople, I'm not saying that you manipulate them because you understand that, but the reality is that when you're likable and you connect with people emotionally, and they'll begin telling you what their problems are, and they trust you, and you create positive emotional experiences from them, they are more likely to buy from you, because at the end of the day, you are no longer a commodity. You are something special to them, and you're able to bring them solutions that allow them to emotionally connect with those solutions, and they buy from you. And that's just how it works. I mean, I wish there was some magic pill that you could give people and say, here's 10 closing techniques, or here's 4 presentation techniques, but that's just not how it works in the real sales environment. Mary, I'm going to throw something in here. One of the things that we talked about before we did this interview is we talked about this concept of old school and new school. And people say, well, there are some techniques like these closing techniques. That's old school. Here's the reality. There is the school. There was never an old school. There is not a new school. There's always going to be, new books that come out and new concepts that come out. But the best salespeople, the very best salespeople from the days when they were trading in front of the pyramids in Egypt, have always developed emotional connections with their clients, and they have focused on uncovering what's important to those clients, and they've solved those problems. They've always done that. That's what they do. And my message to salespeople everywhere is forget about all the stuff that doesn't matter, because I'm just telling you, your product and service, those things are important, but they don't matter nearly as much to your client as how they feel about you. You change that, you get the deal.
And that's such a beautiful way to tie it together, because the way you create a positive emotional experience for somebody is solve their problems. And before you've gotten a chance to solve the problem, create the trust that you are the one that they can count on to solve the problem. And that is the positive experience.
You got it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Very well. Very well said.
So, Jeb, when people are embarking on crafting their personal brand and putting it to use in their sales approach, where do they get tripped up?
I think most people get tripped up on this. So just think about this. 95% of the time, and Mary, I'm not accusing you of anything, but I was going to tell you that this is how you operate, and just as a human being, 95% of the time you are thinking about you. And the 5% of the time that you are not thinking about you, you're thinking about something that's gotten in the way of you thinking about you. Where most people get tripped up is they walk into opportunities, selling opportunities, they walk into interviews, they walk into wherever else, and they're thinking about themselves. Why are they thinking about themselves? Because that's just what we do. So instead of connecting with the client emotionally and actually listening to them, they spend their time pitching and talking about products, features, benefits, all the things that they can do, whether it's important to the client or not. They just talk. And there's a reason for it. Talking makes us feel important. That's what, when we're talking, we feel good. So one of the ways you flip that around is just to recognize that when your client's talking, they feel important and they feel good. And if you can make your client feel important and feel good, you're giving them a really great gift. That's a positive emotional experience. And 9 times out of 10, when a salesperson is failing consistently, it's and they're in sales calls, is that they're spending all of their time pitching. They just pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch. And you can go to consultative selling, relational selling, challenger selling. You can go to all the courses in the world,
Yeah.
and people still have the tendency to walk out after learning all of that stuff and go and talk about their stuff. And so you want to build your personal brand, shut up, ask questions, listen. Trust me, it'll make a huge difference in your sales life.
Well, I would imagine 90% of sales training is on product training. So, they're almost predisposed to focus on themselves and their company and products. So I would imagine a important way or a good tool to flip that around is writing the goals that you set for a sales call and sales meeting, and make those goals around what am I going to do to make that customer feel important. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that, what the reality is that in every sales call you got to have an objective. Why am I here? In fact, I was sitting down with our VP of sales this morning. We're working with a Fortune 100 company on their sales recruiting goals, and so we're sitting there talking about that. And we've got a big presentation with them online next week before we go out and actually see them. And my first question is, what is our objective here? I mean, is our objective to get an account for this year? Is our objective to build a relationship so they're our account 5 years from now? What are we trying to accomplish with this presentation? So before we walk through the door, we know what our particular goal is. Now, that goal doesn't work unless it meshes with the client's goals as well. I mean, the client's got to feel like, if the client's got a short-term need, I want to do something today, and we're talking about 5 years from now, we're in trouble. That's part of strategic selling, is understanding these pieces. And then we've got other players in there. But I think definitely you want to be able to understand that. This is not just walk through the door, kumbaya, let's all hold hands, sing a song, and we get to know each other. You're still there to do business. And that's what we call, and this is a term that we bring up all the time, we call it dual process. Dual process is the empathy to understand what your client needs from their standpoint, but also the wherewithal and the ability to shape your own objective for the meeting so that you're moving the meeting forward, or moving the sale forward, or moving the deal forward, so that you're actually accomplishing something. And there's a lot of salespeople who are really good at making friends, and they never really close anything. And everybody's like, these guys aren't closers. And the reality is they're just not very good at moving to the next step. And you got to kind of do that. So yeah, you want to have those goals going in, and you want to have a plan going in. And then all of the relationship piece, that's where sort of the process, the goal, meets the human side of things. How do I connect with people and get them to tell me what they really need?
Okay, beautiful. Do you have any final wrap up or parting words of wisdom to help our viewers really craft a personal brand that's going to work for them?
I do. I think that the most important thing that you can do is to recognize that you have to have this today. I think that there are a lot of people, and I would say that I would say maybe 80% of the people on the planet today who have access to a computer and are in sales don't understand the importance of this and what they should be doing. I think that there's denial out there. And again, I go back to how many profiles I see on social media from salespeople who don't have a picture on it, or don't have their full name on it. Amy B. I mean, seriously, put your whole name there. People want to know who you are. Mm-hmm. There is no privacy anymore, so forget about it. And just forget about it. Just make sure that you focus on this. Don't deny it anymore. You live in the age of transparency. You've got to manage this, and in a world where virtually every company is exactly the same in your industry, whether you want to deny that or just face the facts, the reality is when everything is equal, and they almost always are in our competitive environment, people buy you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jeb, for giving us the tips for both our in-person personal brand development, but also, I think often forgotten, is our online presence and how that's crafting our personal brand. Huge assistance for our viewers. So great thanks to you.
Thank you for having me. Truly appreciate it.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in and investing in your own success. The Sales Mastery Summit is here to help you never stop learning from the best. Take care.